As you keep walking this path of self-focus, something begins to shift deep within you. You start noticing the subtle layers of your personality, the ones you used to ignore. You realize that you're not just the surface version of yourself, the one you've learned to present to the world. Beneath that is the real you, raw, honest, unfiltered. And the more time you spend with yourself, the clearer that version becomes. It's like peeling away the noise of who you were told to be. You start recognizing old patterns that were never truly yours. You notice where you shrink to fit in, where you overextend to be loved, where you say, "I'm fine," when you're breaking inside. But now, instead of numbing it or blaming others, you pause, you listen. And in that silence, you start to understand these patterns didn't start with you. They began in childhood, in survival, in moments where being acceptable was safer than being authentic. Focusing on yourself means breaking these inherited loops. It means stopping long enough to ask, whose voice is this in my head? Whose standard am I trying to meet? Is this desire mine, or is it what I was conditioned to want? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are necessary, because growth isn't always about adding more. Sometimes it's about removing the layers that no longer serve you. This is where inner work becomes real. Let's talk about triggers. When something triggers you, it's easy to react outward, blame, argue, withdraw. But a self-focused person asks, what inside me just got activated? That one question can change everything. Because triggers are not the enemy. They are messengers. They show you the unhealed parts of yourself. They reveal what still needs attention. And when met with curiosity instead of shame, they become doorways to transformation. For example, if you feel invisible in a conversation, ask yourself, where in your past did you feel unheard? If you get jealous watching someone succeed, ask what part of you feels incapable or left behind. If rejection devastates you, ask, what does this rejection represent to your inner child? This kind of reflection isn't easy, but it's empowering, because it puts the responsibility for your healing back into your own hands. You're no longer waiting for others to fix or validate you. You're not trying to control the external world. You're turning inward. You're reclaiming agency. This is the heart of self-focus, recognizing that your inner state is yours to own, nurture, and evolve. And let's talk about energy, because focusing on yourself also means protecting your energy fiercely. You begin to notice that certain environments drain you, certain conversations leave you depleted, certain people bring chaos instead of peace, and you start making changes, not out of judgment, but out of respect for your well-being. You no longer feel guilty for resting. You no longer apologize for your boundaries. You no longer over-explain your decisions. You simply honor yourself, and let that be enough. This is the quiet power of self-ownership. It doesn't mean cutting people off at the first sign of conflict. It means knowing what you're available for and what you're not. It means saying, I love you, but I need space. I respect your view, but I choose differently. I understand, but I'm choosing peace over proving a point. And in doing so, you build a life that reflects your inner values, not just your outer roles. Let's also address a common fear. What if focusing on myself makes me selfish? This fear is rooted in an old lie, that self-care is self-indulgent, that putting yourself first means abandoning others. But the truth is, when you heal yourself, you raise the quality of everything you touch. You show up in relationships with more presence, not less. You communicate with more honesty, not less. You give from overflow, not obligation. It's not selfish to focus on your growth. It's wise. It's necessary. It's revolutionary in a world that constantly pulls your attention outward. Because most people are stuck in reaction mode, responding to life instead of creating it. But when you center yourself, everything begins to align. Your work feels more meaningful. Your connections feel more authentic. Your inner world becomes your compass, not the opinions of the crowd. And slowly you realize you don't need to chase clarity. It comes naturally when you get quiet enough to listen. This is where the journey becomes spiritual, not in a religious sense, but in a deeply human one. You begin to feel the difference between doing and being. You slow down enough to savor your coffee. You take walks without headphones just to hear your own breath. You make decisions from intuition, not anxiety. You reconnect with your body, not as an image, but as a home. And in this state, Life doesn't feel like something to survive, it feels like something to experience. This shift is subtle, but it's everything. Now let's talk about habits. Because focusing on yourself isn't just a mindset, it's a practice. It's in the small things. Waking up with intention instead of grabbing your phone, journaling your thoughts to clear your mind, moving your body not for punishment, but for celebration. Saying no without guilt, spending time in nature to reconnect with rhythm. Doing things that make you lose track of time, not for productivity, but for presence. These are the rituals of self-focus. They ground you, they return you to yourself, and over time they create a baseline of peace. Because when you focus on yourself, peace becomes the new normal. You don't get caught up in drama, you don't seek validation, you don't need to prove anything, you just are, fully, authentically, powerfully. And this version of you is magnetic. Not because of what you say, but because of your energy. Not because of your image, but because of your clarity. Not because of your status, but because of your stillness. People feel it when you're rooted. They feel it when you've done the inner work. They feel it when you've made peace with your own reflection. And that peace, it's contagious. Because when you live from within, you give others permission to do the same. You become a mirror, not of perfection, but of presence. You show others what it looks like to live in integrity, to honor truth, to follow soul over ego. And that's the quiet revolution we all need. You weren't made to constantly compare, compete, or perform. Deep down, you know this. Because every time you've silenced your intuition to fit in, something inside you felt off. That quiet tension? It was your soul reminding you, you're not here to be a copy. You're here to be a whole living truth. Focusing on yourself is not about isolation. It's about integration. It's where you take every fragmented part of who you are, the joy, the pain, the gifts, the fears, and welcome them home. You stop outsourcing your identity. You stop waiting for permission. You begin to trust your own voice, even when it shakes. And yes, there will be resistance. When you begin focusing on yourself, people might not understand. Some will say you've changed. Some will try to pull you back into the old patterns. Some will feel threatened by your growth. And that's okay, because not everyone is meant to walk every chapter with you. Growth has a cost, and that cost is often comfort. Comfort in relationships. Comfort in routines. Comfort in playing small. But the reward? Freedom. Peace, clarity, purpose. You begin to live aligned with your truth, not out of obligation. So how do you stay focused in a world full of distractions? Start by coming back to the breath. Your breath is always there. It's honest, it's steady, it grounds you when the mind races. Every inhale is a reminder you're alive. Every exhale, a release of what no longer serves. This simple act, just breathing with intention, can bring you back to yourself more than any advice or motivation ever could. Then, practice noticing without judging. Notice when you're being pulled into comparison. Notice when you're shrinking to make others comfortable. Notice when your inner critic takes the wheel. And instead of reacting, just observe. You might think awareness has to be loud, but real awareness is quiet. It's the moment you see yourself clearly and choose differently, not because you should, but because you want to. Let's also talk about emotional responsibility. To focus on yourself is to own your emotions without projecting them onto others. To say, this is my feeling and I'm responsible for understanding it. It doesn't mean you suppress your emotions. It means you process them. You give yourself space to feel fully so that those feelings don't leak out sideways through resentment or avoidance. You write, you reflect, you cry when you need to, you scream if you must, but you do it with intention, with the goal of release, not reaction. This is emotional maturity, and it doesn't always come naturally, but it can be learned. One breath, one pause, one moment at a time. Now, let's dive into comparison, a major trap that pulls you away from yourself. Comparison is the thief of joy, yes, but it's also the thief of focus. Because when you're watching someone else's path, you lose sight of your own. You start measuring your timeline against theirs. You forget that every soul blooms in its own season, that some people peak early and burn out, that some rise slowly, steadily, quietly, and create something lasting. Focusing on yourself means trusting your pace, even when it feels too slow, even when others are rushing ahead, even when doubt whispers that you're behind. you're not behind. You're right where you're meant to be. Your path isn't late, it's layered. It's rich with lessons and timing you may not understand yet. So take your eyes off their highlight reel and come back to your own story, because you're still writing it, and it matters more than you think. Let's revisit the idea of boundaries. Setting boundaries is one of the most self-loving things you can do. But boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges to deeper clarity. When you set a boundary, you're not saying I don't care. You're saying I care enough about myself to protect my peace, and you're giving others a chance to meet you in that truth. Boundaries help you stop betraying yourself. They prevent burnout. They teach people how to treat you, based not on your words, but your consistency. So if you've been over-giving, over-explaining, over-apologizing, pause. Ask yourself, what am I trying to earn that I already deserve? Love, respect, belonging. You don't have to earn those. They begin with you. And when you give them to yourself first, your whole world shifts. Because you no longer accept crumbs. You no longer chase people to prove your worth. You no longer tolerate energy that drains your soul. You choose peace. And peace isn't passive, it's powerful. Let's talk about loneliness. Yes, focusing on yourself can feel lonely at first, because you start pulling away from noise, distractions, and superficial connections. And in that quiet, you confront the parts of yourself you used to avoid. But loneliness isn't the enemy. It's the beginning of intimacy with yourself. It's the space where you get honest, where you sit with your own thoughts, even the uncomfortable ones. Where you realize that your worth isn't tied to who texts you back or how full your schedule is. You learn to enjoy your own company. You take yourself out on walks. You cook your own meals with love. You laugh at your own jokes. You become your own sanctuary. And from that place, you attract people who resonate with your truth, not just your mask. This is how self-focus changes your relationships. You stop needing others to complete you. You start meeting them from wholeness, not hunger. Now remember this, self-focus isn't a destination, it's a practice, a daily choice, a commitment to come back to yourself over and over again. Some days you'll forget, you'll get caught in old habits, you'll scroll too much, you'll seek validation, you'll overextend, and that's okay, because the moment you notice you've already returned. Awareness is the reset, compassion is the fuel. Be gentle with yourself. You're learning a new way to live, a way rooted in presence, purpose, and peace, and you're doing better than you think. When you begin to truly focus on yourself, something beautiful happens. You stop living reactively and start living intentionally. You stop being a mirror of other people's expectations and start becoming a clear window into your own truth. You no longer wait for permission to feel whole. You simply allow yourself to be. Let's take a moment to look at how you can structure your day to support this self-focus. Because transformation isn't about one big moment, it's about small, sacred choices repeated consistently. Start your mornings without noise. Before you reach for your phone, before the world pulls you in, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, what do I need today to feel grounded? It could be stillness, it could be movement, it could be writing, or simply silence. Even 5 minutes of intentional presence can change your whole trajectory. Then, set one intention, not a to-do list, not a pressure-filled goal, just a feeling. I want to feel calm today. I want to be present. I want to stay kind to myself. Let this be your compass. Every time you're tempted to lose yourself in someone else's energy or agenda, come back to that intention. And throughout your day, practice asking, is this aligned with who I'm becoming? Not who you were. Not who others expect, but who you are choosing to become. This question filters out the noise. You stop saying yes out of guilt. You stop chasing validation. You start acting from alignment, not anxiety. It's not selfish, it's sacred. Now let's talk about emotional triggers, because the path of self-focus isn't always peaceful. Sometimes when you turn inward, you uncover wounds, old patterns, unmet needs, emotional baggage you didn't know you were carrying. And that's okay. Healing is messy. Growth isn't linear. When a trigger comes up, don't shame yourself for it. Instead, get curious. Ask, what part of me is asking for love right now? What belief is being activated? What old story am I ready to release? This shift, from judgment to curiosity, turns pain into power. It's not about never being triggered again. It's about recognizing your triggers without becoming them. You don't need to fight your past, you just need to witness it with compassion. Because the parts of you that still hurt aren't broken. They're just waiting to be seen. And the more you see yourself clearly, the less you depend on others to define you. This is how you reclaim your emotional independence. It's not detachment, it's maturity. You still feel deeply, you still care, but you stop outsourcing your worth to people who don't know how to hold it. And in that space, something remarkable happens. You stop settling. You stop tolerating half-hearted connections. You stop staying silent to keep the peace. You stop chasing love that asks you to abandon yourself, because now you've met the real you. And once you do that, you can't unsee it. That's the beginning of self-respect. Self-respect doesn't mean arrogance. It means boundaries that honor your growth. It means speaking with honesty, even when your voice trembles. It means leaving spaces that no longer nourish your spirit. It means choosing rest when the world glorifies hustle. You no longer live to prove yourself, you live to be yourself. And that is the highest success. Let's also explore how focusing on yourself strengthens your creativity. When you're not distracted by constant comparison, your mind has space to imagine, space to explore, space to create without fear of judgment. Some of your deepest gifts, your art, your voice, your ideas, are buried under the noise of external validation. But when you come back to yourself, you unearth them. You start creating not for applause, but for alignment. Not to impress, but to express. You remember that your uniqueness isn't a flaw, it's a fingerprint. And the more you honor it, the more magnetic your energy becomes. People start to notice. Not because you're louder, but because you're real. You walk into a room and your energy speaks before you do. That's the power of someone who knows who they are. That's what happens when you stop watching everyone else and focus on your own inner world. And finally, let's talk about rest. In a society that glorifies being busy, rest is a rebellion. But it's also a requirement. When you rest, you regulate your nervous system, you reconnect with your body, you allow integration to happen. Because healing isn't just thinking new thoughts, it's feeling new safety. It's practicing self-trust through the nervous system. Rest isn't lazy, rest is regenerative. So if your body is asking for slowness, honor that. Take the nap. Say no. Turn off the screen. Sit with yourself in silence. Your worth isn't tied to productivity. It's already intact. You don't have to earn rest. You just have to remember you're human, and in your humanness, you are sacred. So let this be your reminder. You're allowed to focus on yourself. You're allowed to choose peace. You're allowed to grow, even if others don't understand. You're not here to please. You're here to become. And the world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs more authentic ones. People who are rooted, present, whole, and brave enough to say, I am enough as I am right now. Keep coming home to that truth.